In the Homeric classic The Odyssey, we follow the journey of the great Odysseus, man of sorrows. The tale starts out with Zeus and Athena, who are planning Odysseus' safe journey home. But the only reason they have to do that is because Poseidon, god of the sea, is angry with Odysseus and won't let him sail home. And as the story continues, we hear how Hermes helped Odysseus, and how Calypso kept him trapped on her island. Then how Ino saved his life by giving him a floating veil. Odysseus has waylaid even Helios' cows too. And then the god of smelly seals got thrown in there too. And Circe also turned his men into how Ino saved him, how Ino saved his floating by giving him. If you haven't guessed by now, the role of the ancient Greek gods in both the Odyssey and in the overall Greek way of life were very important. It was through the power of the gods that Odysseus was able to make it home. However, it was also through them that he suffered for several long years, kept away from both his kingdom and his family. For anyone in our modern society reading the Odyssey, the idea that the Greeks put so much faith in their gods may sound crazy, but that's because we value independence in our modern society. When we wake up in the morning, we take comfort in the fact that we know that we're in charge of our own destiny. But back then, people didn't understand things like we do today. When something happened, they would blame it on the gods. When the sun rose, it was based on the god of the sun. When a warrior didn't make it back from war, it was because the gods willed it. Basically, anything and everything was pinned on the gods. Now we know this reasoning is wrong, but the more that we can connect with the Greeks and the fascination with their gods, the more we can appreciate classic pieces of Greek literature, like the Odyssey.
I think the importance of gods to the Greeks are the same as gods are in every civilization. I think we have a desire to feel like there's structure, like there's meaning, like somebody else is paying attention, to give us a sense of certainty. We don't like the unknown, and so a system of gods can help explain that for people.
I think first and foremost it was a way to understand the world. Obviously one of the most common would be physical events in nature. The sun rising, the sun setting, the notion of thunderstorms. Thunder, who makes that? Well, someone must be angry. Zeus is throwing his thunderbolts. There's gods, plural, of the sea, of the forest, of the rivers, of all the tiny streams. So everything had a presence. It was almost a pantheism where God or gods inhabit everything in nature. So there was some explanation since there was no scientific knowledge.
So why hasn't Odysseus returned? Well, it's because the gods have been playing with him.
As I recall, Odysseus angered Poseidon. Bad move in Greek, the pantheon of gods. If you angered any one of the gods, you probably were punished in some fashion.
He gets trapped here, and this monster comes up there, and things happen to him along the way because he's a very powerful hero among mortals. So it would surprise us that it's just, some random people that are delaying his return. And it's not. It's the gods playing with him. And it takes the gods to get him out of those messes too.
One god waylays him, another swoops in to help, and it becomes this dramatic story. The Odyssey then becomes this journey home, which is common to every culture, it seems to me. A mythology of home as the core of your existence.
Well, I think it's interesting that in the Greek system, gods were not infallible, and they weren't necessarily omniscient or omnipotent. So they were, in a way, a different set of humans.
They play pranks on one another. They get into fights. They're very human because humans created them, of course. It's tempting, isn't it? The notion of a religious system based on many, many different gods, sort of to suit whatever you needed. The seasons, the weather, natural phenomena, unnatural phenomena, and gods that fulfill different kinds of duties. But it is a real foreign notion to most.
When you have a hegemonic superstition like we saw in Greek society and later Roman society and in many societies throughout time, everything fits into that system, right? So if we all accept that we have good crops when we all behave well, then that's what explains it. It's interesting to think about how that has changed over time, because the United States was a great departure. We think about it in terms of democracy, but one of the key pieces is that now we have human leaders. When you look at what was happening in Europe, what we were leaving, the leaders, the kings and queens, the royalty families, they had divine right. They were chosen by God, right? And so I'm king of England because God wants me to be. So when you question me, you're questioning God, right? So you can't do that. And so God explains everything and justifies everything. And we said that's not what we believed in. And the U.S. was the first great application of that. We're now selecting our leaders based on us, based on our wants and needs. And so we made a break from that superstition that everything was controlled by God.
That polytheistic notion might just be too busy. For American sensibilities, that may seem a bit too cartoonish, too filled with drama, too unbelievably, inexplicably complicated. I think we take a lot away from the stories, just in general, especially the Odyssey, in terms of how we understand an epic story with grand proportions, with gods who can, drain the ocean, who can cause men to turn into pigs, lots of powers, and that whole magical sense may be also what we are both drawn to and repelled by, as being a little too fairy tale-ish. It certainly makes for a great story, though.
It gave us human drama. That's always been part of literature, right? So we have a hero, we have anti-heroes, there's a plot, there's romance, there's conflict, and so those are always part of Greek myths.
I think the gods add so much to the story to maybe help us as humans relate to how we may feel about our own lives in terms of, are we really in control? Or do we have some sense of a destiny, a fate that's been foretold that we can't escape?